What do you do when you make too much money? It's a problem most of us will probably never have. But for one man, it turned into a logistical nightmare of rats, rubber bands, and buried treasure. This is the story of how Pablo Escobar, the most notorious drug lord in history, got so rich that the law wasn't his biggest problem. It was figuring out what to do with all the cash. At its peak, the Medellín Cartel was reportedly pulling in an estimated $420 million a week. That's not a typo. That's around $60 million a day. This flood of money was more than any bank would dare to touch, more than any person could possibly spend. It became a physical burden, a plague of wealth that dragged Escobar into a desperate game of hide-and-seek with his own fortune. Back in the 1980s, Pablo Escobar wasn't just a criminal. He was the CEO of a massive global enterprise that controlled 80% of the world's cocaine market. Every single day, his network smuggled about 15 tons of cocaine into the United States alone. This operation generated a river of American dollars that flowed right back to Colombia, and by 1989, it had made Escobar the seventh richest man on the planet. His personal net worth skyrocketed to an estimated $30 billion. He bought up sprawling estates, private jets, and even built a personal zoo filled with exotic animals. But even that kind of spending barely made a dent in the cash piling up. The sheer volume was overwhelming. Banks couldn't touch it, and normal money laundering was just too slow. The cartel was physically drowning in profits, and Escobar desperately needed a place to hide it. The solution was as crude as it was necessary. They had to hide the cash. Everywhere. They stuffed it into rundown warehouses, buried it in plastic barrels on quiet Colombian farms, and even walled it up inside the homes of cartel members. But this led to a whole new set of bizarre problems. First, there was the rubber band situation. The cartel was reportedly spending $2,500 every single month just on rubber bands to wrap the stacks of bills. But even bundled up, the money wasn't safe. Stuffed into damp basements and buried in fields, the cash started to rot. Even worse, it became dinner. According to his own brother and chief accountant, Roberto Escobar, they wrote off about 10% of their cash every year. Why? Rats would chew through the bills. Water would turn them into a moldy pulp. Or they were simply lost. That 10% loss amounted to an estimated $2.1 billion a year. They were losing more money to rodents and moisture than most major corporations on the planet were making in profit. It was just another cost of doing business on an impossible scale. For a while, this insane system actually worked. Escobar played the part of a Robin Hood figure to some, spending huge sums on community projects while waging a bloody war of plata o plomo, silver or lead, against the Colombian state. But as law enforcement closed in, his greatest asset became his biggest liability. All that money was completely useless if he couldn't get to it. There's a story that while he was on the run, hiding out in the mountains with his family, his daughter started suffering from hypothermia. To keep her warm, Escobar supposedly set a fire with $2 million in crisp banknotes. When he was finally cornered and killed by Colombian forces in 1993, he was a man with a theoretical fortune of billions. Yet, he died without a penny of it in his pocket. His empire crumbled, and his hidden fortune became the stuff of legend. Rival cartels, former associates, and the government scrambled to find what they could. But much of it has never been recovered. It was either destroyed by the elements or remains buried, waiting for treasure hunters who are still looking for it today. The story of Escobar's wealth is a lesson in absurd extremes. It really makes you wonder, what's money actually worth when you literally can't use it? If you think the hidden mechanics of the world are as fascinating as I do, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell for more deep dives into unbelievable stories. Pablo Escobar built an empire that made him one of the wealthiest men in history. But his story isn't just about getting rich. It's about the absolute absurdity of that wealth. He had so much cash that it became a physical problem. eaten by rats, destroyed by water, and in the end, as useless as dust when he needed it most. He mastered the art of making money but failed at the simple logistics of keeping it, leaving behind a legacy of violence and a legendary lost fortune that still captures the imagination.